Good morning, good morning, good morning. Flavor Fest, how's it going? How you guys doing? So, thank you all for coming. Um, what we're gonna talk about today is I wanted to give this class something where I want you to be able to walk away with things you can do today to start your career as a recording artist. Um, so we can go to the next slide. So what we'll cover in this session is what is a recording artist, setting your budget, creating a product, content creation, rollout, validation points, marketing yourself, networking, and collaborating. You can go to the next slide. So the first question is, what is a recording artist? By a show of hands, who are here are artists? Okay. So what I want to do is give you the why behind everything and how things work. So what is a recording artist? If you can go over to the next slide for me. So a recording artist is a musician who makes money by selling audio recordings. So if you know that your goal is to make an income off of your music, then it's easier to set goals. A lot of times when musicians first start, you get in this headspace of you're a dreamer. You know, you want the you think about the Grammys and the accolades and awards. When truly becoming an artist is starting a business, it's an entrepreneurship. If you understand that you're building a brand and you're building a business that you can generate income so you can be able to take care of your family, so you can be able to go on those vacations that you want. So when you think of it like that, it becomes more simplified. Can we go to the next slide? So here are a few revenue streams. You guys could just write these down. So these are the revenue streams of your that you will be focusing on. So music streams, that's Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. So music streams will be your main source of revenue. This is where you're going to start. Before you get to anything else, you're going to have to build on your music streams by releasing continuous records over a period of time. The next thing is touring, live shows. So once you build a certain audience, you're going to get into touring and creating live shows for yourself that's going to generate hard ticket sales. So back in the day, you had artists like in the Motown era when they was going on the Chitlin circuits. The reason for that was to create an audience that will come and then buy into the product, which is the music or the musical artist. This product is touring will be your main source of creating those hard ticket sales and creating those genuine fans that just love you and they'll participate in anything you do. The next thing is merchandising. Once you build a certain level of following, then you get into merchandising. This is where you can sell T-shirts. My guy right here, like, y'all do an amazing job at selling the merch. So merchandising will be one of your revenue streams. That's T-shirts. That could be whatever you're into. If you're into hair products, if you're a public speaker, that can be a thing you're selling. So the next thing will be sync. So sync is when you put your music into films, movies, and things like that. And then brand deals will be your last revenue stream. And this is branding with people like Puma, Apple Music, and even smaller brands. There's small Christian brands that you could DM and do brand deals with. Can we go to the next slide? So the first thing you have to do when starting your career or starting a release. So what I'm going to do is just take you on a journey from step 1 to 50. Reason why I say 50 is because I want to show you how to go from, let's assume that you've never released a record. Let's assume that you've never done anything as an artist. This will be the beginning steps. This is how you go from unknown to building a buzz that can eventually get you a record deal or eventually bring in revenue for your career. So setting a budget will be the first thing. Can we go to the next slide? An independent budget that could impact your career is from $500 to $1,500. With this budget, you can invest in things like production, running ads, cover art, music videos, short form content, which is a big one. Even look things like booking interviews. That's another thing. Booking interviews on credible platforms too. We can go to the next slide. So some of the things that you're going to be using, these are all the things, I want you to write these down. These are all the things that you're going to think about when setting a production budget. Setting a budget overall. So for production, you're going to create two sides. So you're going to have your production side, and then you're going to have your marketing side. And this is how labels run their budget, is we think about the production and then the marketing. So for production, you're thinking about things like beats, mixing, studio time, engineers, and anything that comes with that. You may want to pay out your songwriter if you have people writing your songs for you. So that's all that's included in production. And marketing is cover art, short form content, music videos, photo shoots, running ads, paying for interviews and performance platforms. So a performance platform, for anyone that doesn't know, is something like On the Radar, if you ever seen that, from the Block, and anything like the Mic Drop platforms and things like that. So those are also things you want to think about during your budget stage. Can we go to the next slide? The next thing we're going to do is start to create the product. So we have the budget in mind. We know that we're trying to create these revenue streams. So let's start by creating a product. Let's go to the next slide. So my first thought as an independent artist is recording. Recording costs will run you dry if you let it. My advice is have a home studio setup. This allows you to create your songs, and this allows you to get better at creating songs. The first thing you want to think about is how good your songs are, and having a home setup would do that for you. These are the prices. Pro Tools does subscriptions now. Waves does subscriptions, and Auto-Tune does subscriptions now, so it's more affordable. The reason why you want to have a home setup is because of the things I listed in the beginning, which is being able to develop your sound. It takes time to develop your sound. What you don't want to do is run dry by continuously going to the studio every day. You paying, $50 an hour for the studio session, and then eventually what happens is before you even come up with a sound, you burnt out financially, and then it's hard for you to think about creating this sound because you're thinking about studio time. A thing that you can do, I know a lot of times when I talk to people about home setups, what they say is they have issues with engineering. I don't know how to engineer, man. What should I do? I have a solution for that. What you should do, get you a home setup, and then hire an engineer to come to your home setup for $25 an hour. So now you're getting the studio time for half price. Because when you go to a regular studio, you're paying anything between $35 to $50 an hour. So now you could just get somebody locally that knows how to engineer. And since you have the setup, they can just come to your home and you can do something. You can work out a deal for $20 to $25 an hour. If it's a friend of yours, you probably could drop that price because it's a home studio. We can go to the next slide. So another issue that we run into a lot as independent artists trying to grow is finding production. Where do I find beats? So here are some of the websites that you can go to find beats where they lease out beats for like $30, $20. And when you're starting your career, that's totally fine. Don't overthink it to where you feel like I have to own this beat. I have to own the whole rights of the beats. There's people that's made their careers off of leased beats. Lil Nas X being one of them, where he had one of the biggest hits in the world, and I think he got that beat off of YouTube. You know what I mean? So here are just places you can go to start off. Another thing you can do is just network locally and find local producers, young producers that you may see at music events. Another thing is DMing. That's the quickest way to find who you need locally. So what I used to do is if there was a producer that I would want to work with, I would DM them. Hey, how's it going? My name is Dre. So I started off as a songwriter. I'm a songwriter. I would love to work with you. Do you have an email that I can send a couple of my songs for you to check out? By asking, does he have an email, that takes out the need for him to respond, right? All he's going to do is just drop that email. And that's what you want. You want it to be as quick as possible. Now he drops the email. What you do is you send him some songs. If you're a songwriter, if you're an artist, you send him some songs. He can hear you and if they like the song, what they'll end up doing is just sending you back tracks. And that's how you begin networking and building your roster of producers around yourself. And what you want to do during this whole process, your focus is you're building a team. So you got the engineer from the home studio setup. Now you have this engineer that comes to you locally. Now you building with producers. So now you have your producer and your engineer, and these can be the guys that you keep going back to and keep growing on. Can we go to the next slide? Another thing is mixing. So that's a big thing. So Get Mixed is actually a part of Reach. So I work for Reach Records. My name is Dre Hunter. I'm an A&R over at Reach Records, and we have a company within it called Get Mixed. And Get Mixed created an affordable price range for mixing and mastering for independent artists, and these are the prices here. If not Get Mixed, there's other websites that you can go on, that you can Google and find resources to get your records mixed and master. Also, the local engineer. If you end up befriending somebody, and then you can also get them to do it. It's times where I've got whole mix and master tracks for $150. It all depends on how you negotiate and who you're working with. And then also another thing is, don't overthink the mix. If you're able to hear the song and you're in the beginning of your career, if you're able to hear the song and it has clarity and it feels good, it doesn't have to be like mastered. Like master is, I put out plenty records where it was just a mix on it from the studio and it's gone. The goal here is to get started, get it going. You know what I mean? So what you're trying to do is build that morale up, build that morale to want to keep going. And once you see the results back from releasing a record and seeing how people interact with you, that's going to drive you to continue to go. So let's go to the next slide. So after you create the record, the next thing, so there's going to be two things you need to release an official record: cover art and a mix. Once you have cover art and a mix, your record is ready to be uploaded to digital music services, which is DistroKid, TuneCore, CD Baby, Ditto Music, and Symphonic. You can choose whichever one you feel fits you the best. They all pretty much do the same thing, which is upload your music to Spotify, Apple Music, and things like that. So the two things that you need, once again, is cover art and a mix, final mix for the song. If you have those two things, you can upload the music and it's ready to go. We can go to the next. Did y'all get all this? Okay, we can go to the next slide. All right, the next thing you do once you've uploaded your song is, once the song is fully uploaded and it shows up in Spotify, then you're ready to register your record. You register your record through ASCAP, BMI. Song Trust collects, so there's about 4 different collections. You have your PRO, you have the mechanical, and then you have Sound Exchange, and then you have iTunes. So you should be getting 4 different checks from your music. Song Trust, you sign up for it's $100. They collect on the publishing side of your music. BMI collects, ASCAP and BMI collects on the writer side. Sound Exchange collects on the artist side and label. And because you're releasing your record yourself, you're the label, so you own the master to that. So that's Sound Exchange. Another submission platform is the radio submissions. So this is very important to start expanding your reach. One of the main ones is Holy Culture Radio for Christian artists. It's free to submit. You just go to the site, and when you go to the site, it'll have a form. You put in the information from the form. It's going to ask for your ISRC code. You put in your ISRC code, and it's in the name of the song, and it loads up. The next one is laminate. So this is how you sign up for Billboard charts, and it's the same thing. It's literally just a form site. You go to this site, a form comes up, you sign up, and then that qualifies your song for the Billboard charts. Another one that I found that's pretty dope is the Amazing Radio and the BBC Radio, which is UK radio stations, but you still collect from those because these are Sirius XM radio stations. But so I've registered songs with Amazing Radio. Right now I have over 50 plays from it, and this is a song that I registered about 3 weeks ago. And this song is playing in London, in Australia, and these are on syndicated radio stations. All right, we can go to the next slide. All right, so the next thing, and this is step by step. So the first step was the creating the product, which was getting in the studio, finding that engineer, creating your song, uploading your song. Now your song is on DSPs. Now your song is ready to be released to the world. What happens next is the content creation stage. This is the most important stage. This is the marketing of your record. We can go to the next slide. So the content creation is marketing yourself as an artist is essential for gaining recognition and opportunity. Social media platforms like Instagram and Twitter are great ways to showcase your work and connect with potential clients and collaborators. Your most important platforms is going to be Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and Facebook Shorts, right? And it's extremely simple to do this. You could do this with an iPhone if you have a camera. So the key to success on these platforms right now is quality content. You want to, if you can, invest in a camera. And what you do is you literally create vertical videos of your song. So you have one song. You create a vertical video to the song. It could be in your house. It could be wherever. Just make sure the quality of the camera is extremely good, right? Then you create one. You could take a whole 1 minute video of you performing lip syncing the song. You sync the music to the video, and then you put the words in it. And now you have 3 different clips. If you record the whole song top to bottom, you have the first verse, second verse, and hook, right? And those are 3 different pieces of content. And what you do with those content is you create, what I did was I create 30 pieces of content from that, right? So I'll be sitting right here, you shoot a shot, we turn over here, we shoot another shot. It's that simple. You turn over here, you shoot another shot, and this turns into 15 pieces of content just from that, right? Then what you do is when your song release, the day that your song released, that's when you start dropping this content, right? And you drop 1 piece of content every single day on all these platforms: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Facebook Shorts. It's the same piece of content on all platforms. And you do this every single day for 2 to 3 weeks, and what's gonna happen is you're driving people to this song because it's the first time they see it. The thing about Instagram that a lot of artists get caught up on is their feed. And TikTok too is I want my feed to look a certain way. The way that consumers consume TikTok is almost it's like a revolving effect, right? It goes up through your timeline, and then every minute or so something new gets inserted and put into the audience's face. So if you think about it like that, where all you're trying to do is catch somebody's attention, right? So if you're dropping content every single day, you're catching people's attention on this piece of music that you're dropping. And then what that does is you may get 100 views, right? But then you get 2 new people that goes and stream your record. And you do that every day for 3 weeks. And what it does is it drives people to your Spotify. The way Spotify works is the monthly listeners go off of new people that view you. So people that haven't seen you before. Streams are based off of the people that's already there that's streaming you. So your monthly listeners go up every time you get somebody new to come and listen to your content. So what you want to do is use TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and Instagram to bring people to your Spotify. Your goal is to grow your Spotify monthly listeners. The goal is to grow your streams across the board through that. And then we can go to the next slide. So this right here, so these are the tricks. I'm about to get into like the tricks of the trade, things that you probably never heard anyone say, and these are validation points. So validation points is a term that I came up with in just managing some of the artists that I work with. So validation points are when you seen, if you see Drake at the Grammys, right? Are you seeing, a perfect example was like Glorilla. Where did she come from? And then all of a sudden you see her at the BET Awards. You see her at the Grammys. You see her here. Those are validation points. What that does is it validates you to the audience. It says that you're credible as an artist and that I could trust that you make great music. So you have to show up on certain platforms while you're growing so that the audience can trust your music. It's almost like going into a restaurant, and you go into this restaurant, and if you see a score of C, you like, nah, I'm not going to eat here. You know what I mean? But if you see an A+, because this restaurant is validated, now I'm eating here based off of the validation of this restaurant, right? Or, you know, a funny thing that happened in Atlanta was Keith Lee came in town, right? Right? He shut Atlanta down. Keith Lee came in town. He was validating certain spots. And they knew that. So what some of these restaurants did was they called Keith Lee, hey, I want you to come and eat at my restaurant and then give a review. If he gave a great review, it was validating to the audience that this is a place I need to go. So these validation points work the same. When you show up on platforms like On the Radar and From the Block and The Breakfast Club and places like that, it validates you as an artist. Now we trust that you're a great artist. Can we go to the next slide? So here's some of the validation points. We start with Flavor Fest, of course. Shout out Flavor Fest. So Track Stars is one of them. For the Christian culture, there's a couple of validation points, which is Flavor Fest, Track Stars, the Dove Awards, the Stellar Awards, being seen with certain artists, collaborating with artists like we have Miles Minnick here, collaborating with artists like Miles Minnick, some of the artists off the roster, which is 1K Few or One Day, just getting those collaborations. These things sometimes, like with On the Radar and From the Block, for instance, From the Block, right, costs $1,500 to book. And that's a thing that a lot of artists, I think when you first come in the game, you don't understand that it is a pay-to-play industry. No matter how high you go, you get to a certain place organically, and then after that, to grow past your organic growth, you have to spend some type of money. Exactly. So some of those things is from the block. Off the porch is $1,500. You may want to get a complex interview, right? Or an Apple Music interview. You have to hire, if you don't have those relationships yourself, you have to hire a PR, right? And that PR may be anything from $1,500 to $5,000 a month, you know what I mean, to get you on these platforms. To get on certain platforms, you have to be at a certain number. So you do have to grow. You do have to grow organically at first, which would be the content. The content part is the free part. That's what you can do with just, of course, you got to invest in the camera, but once you invest in the camera, your content is just created off of how creative can you get. You know what I mean? And that's the part that organically grows you. And then when you go to these major platforms, the complex, they go back and they look at your numbers. How many social media followers do you have? Where's your monthly listeners on Spotify? Okay, cool. We know if you pay for this platform and you get on this platform, we know that you're going to have an audience that comes with you. So we're more willing to book you based off of that. We can go to the next slide. So these are points. So I wanted to share something special with y'all. So I was in a meeting with a LVRN A&R, and he was telling me I had an artist, and I was, we were talking about, having an artist sign to the label, and he was like, well, there's certain numbers that I got to show my VPs before they get excited. And these are the numbers that he presented to me. He said, you're going to have 80 to 100K followers on Instagram at least. And these numbers aren't numbers that mean you're going to start making money. You could be generating money as an artist way before this, right? These are numbers that get labels that make label heads interested to where they want to do a deal with you because they know that these numbers show that you generate income as an artist, to investors. So with Spotify, anything from 100,000 to 500K monthly listeners, right? One song that streams 1 million streams in less than 6 months, that shows that you have an audience. Live shows, you can sell 100 to 500 hard tickets. You can bring 100 to 500 people out to a show at a time. So what these numbers did for me is when I seen these numbers, now we have a goal in mind. Now I know exactly what I'm doing everything for, right? I know that, okay, I need an investor as an artist. If that's your thought, it's like, I need somebody to invest in me. I know if I reach these numbers, there's more likely of a chance that someone will eventually call me, or I would eventually run into somebody that would be interested in investing in my career as an artist, which would be like a label per se. And so these are the numbers that you reach for. The importance of knowing where you're going is because now you have a focus. It's some artists that get stuck at, you may have a certain number of monthly listeners. You may have like 60,000 monthly listeners and you never go past that, or you have 6,000 followers on Instagram and you never go past that because you don't find it important. When you think about it as a business, and as these numbers show that it's almost like a bank loan, this is good credit to label heads. This shows that when I see these numbers on an artist, this shows that you're focused. This shows that you take your craft serious. This shows that you understand the business enough that if I partner up with you as a label, that you're going to do your part of the deal. So that's what these numbers mean to a label head. We can go to the next slide. So now you're at a place where you have the product is registered, it's mixed and mastered, you're creating content, you're putting out that content every single day. You understand validation points. You understand that, okay, while your content is out, that's when you should be showing up from the block and on the radar. Like during that 2 to 3 week window is when you should be showing up on these platforms. So now you're showing up on these platforms, people seeing you. You're validated and you're credible. You understand that I have to build to a certain amount for investors, and then I have to build a certain amount to create an income stream for myself. And those are all the numbers that we're doing. The next thing you want to do during that process is network and collaborate. So networking opens up the doors for more opportunities. Coming to events like this, just going to local shows. A great way to network too is if you see a local artist that's kind of going up and they're performing in certain places, going to that show and maybe asking who put on the show and figuring out who's the what's the word? My bad. Promoter. There we go. So who's the promoter of the show? And then, building a relationship with that promoter. And that'll get you booked out in your city more. Doing things like that is key to really like growing yourself as an artist. Your goal as an artist is consistent growth. As soon as numbers stop, you have to rethink your plan. As soon as those numbers stop, if your Instagram following stop, if your Spotify monthly listeners stop, if those aren't growing anymore, that means you're not getting in front of a new audience. That means you still have the same audience from the moment it stopped, and now you have to figure out how to get in front of a new audience. The way you get in front of a new audience is collaborations, right? Is you go and find artists like Miles and a few and people like that, and because your numbers are probably built up to a certain place now because you've been putting out this content on social media, you've been doing all this, these artists are more likely to hear you out, and it's a simple DM. Like, the thing in the Christian space too is like everyone is really more accessible than we think. Sometimes it's a simple DM. If you're doing your part as an artist and you're showing up on social media the way that it garners attention, what happens is when you reach out to these artists, they're more willing to, to do the feature. They're more willing to come and do a video with you because of what and it's bad to say, but what it looks like. You have to play that game to grow yourself as an artist. Another thing that's extremely important is the way you come off, your brand, right? The way you're dressing, the way the clarity of your videos, the quality of your videos, the quality of your music, how that mix sounds. That's important. All these things matter to building your brand. And then once you find something that kind of defines you as an artist, staying consistent in that until you reach a certain number and then changing it up. Just some great examples of people who in here know artists by the name of Alex Jean. So Alex Jean, what he did is he started, I did some research last night. He started in 2022, and he dropped his first song. After that, he dropped another song a month later. While he was dropping these songs, you seen the content back to back on his social media, and it kept growing. And he noticed that these songs were dropping, and he kept it going. And from 2022 to 2023, he probably dropped about, I seen like 13 records, right? And it constantly built. And the goal sometimes isn't, I think what happens is artists get in this space where it becomes about how it looks aesthetically. Man, I want my audience to see it a certain way. And it's, if you remember that you're running a business, and to keep these lights on, you have to drop this many records, and they have to generate this much to make you your money back. My number one rule is you never spend more than your record is making you. So if your record is making you $100, you shouldn't be putting more than $100 into it. You know what I mean? And so that's a rule of thumb of mine. It's like, how much is why would you spend $20,000 or $10,000 on this music video and you're not generating that. You know what I mean? So that's something that is a key. Like if you run your artist career like a business, then it becomes more clear for you. So what I seen with Alex is that as he grew, the content got better. You know, the music, the mixes got better, and everything started to get better. There's an artist that I work with. Her name is Lee Vazzi, and she wanted to start doing Christian R&B music. So because I felt like the artists that I work with at the label, they already had a certain platform. I've never seen it from zero before, and I was interested. I said, yo, I got this. Everything I just told y'all today, I said, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try to apply this and see what happens. So when we started, she had 28 monthly listeners. The first thing we did was get the catalog together. We came up with the records. So she ended up writing 5 records. Then we came up with a system. So with Spotify regenerates your monthly listeners every 28 days. So we came up with an idea of, what if we drop a record every 28 days? Every time Spotify regenerates its monthly listeners, we drop another record, right? And we don't even have to drop a new record. What we ended up doing, she's a bilingual artist. So what we ended up doing is dropping the English version and then the Spanish version, right? So what we're trying to do is we're in a new era. It's not about hit records anymore. It's about beating the algorithm. You know what I mean? So how do you beat the algorithm? You got to feed the beast. You got to stay in front of it. You know what I mean? So what we did was we came up with the idea, okay, we're going to continue to feed this algorithm. So we shot content. We shot the 30 pieces of content, and we dropped a piece of content every day. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts. We did the validation points. We did a track star interview the day of the release. And then, God just put it in, just threw this one on our laps. But there's a Twitch streamer by the name of Casanet and Speed. And what ended up happening is a friend of mine just texted me randomly and was like, hey, Casanet and Speed has a talent show. Do you know any artists that may want to be a part of that? And I thought about Lee, and I was like, yo, I don't know if this going to work, but let me just trust the process. I know that validation points are important, so let me trust it. And so I sent her the thing. She did it. She did the audition, ended up getting the talent show. When she got to the talent show, it was extremely chaotic. It almost seemed like, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? It was people backstage just doing all type of wild stuff, but she stuck in there, and she ended up doing the talent show. And what ended up happening is from the chaos, God still blessed what she was doing because of, we came in there we coming with Jesus in here. And you know what I mean? We don't care what platform we on. We're going to rep hard. So what ended up happening is she did this piece of content, and while her record just released, so her record released on Friday. Saturday, we're doing the shoot. Sunday, the content comes out. We put it out as another validation point. What ends up happening is we chopped up the clip. So they streamed it on their stream. We chopped up the clip ourselves and put it out on her TikTok. And what ended up happening is it started going viral on her TikTok, and it shot her numbers up. So that was knowingly we understood validation points. And we understood that if she's seen with somebody that's validated, that now it validates her. And so that's a strategy we used during that time. And at the same time, after that, we're still dropping content. So a strategy that I learned from a guy by the name of Rich Then Famous, he's a Christian hip-hop artist, and he used to be a YouTuber. And he was like, yo, on TikTok, you can drop the same piece of content like 3 times, and it doesn't matter. Just write something different in it. So I'm like, what? Like, this is, okay. So we tried it. And what happens is you will drop the same piece of content, and one piece of the content will probably have like 200 views. And you'll drop it again, and you'll see it go to 1,500. Then you'll drop it a third time, and then it'll shoot up 20,000, or you know what I mean? And it's random. You never know when or what piece of content going to do it. But it took us out of the mindset of we need to be doing something super creative all the time, and it put us back in the mindset of feed the algorithm. As long as you beat the algorithm, you're still doing what you're supposed to do, which is you're constantly building your followers and getting in front of a new audience. So we're doing this. So 2 weeks in, dropping content every single day. What eventually happens is we see her monthly listeners go up. Something that happened that I felt like God kind of came in on was her Apple Music didn't load up. So the song didn't load into Apple Music. It was only on Spotify. So when we were putting out the content, people could only go to Spotify. And so what I noticed, I said, what would probably be a great idea for new artists that release their first song is the most important validation point for an artist is Spotify monthly listeners, right? Me as a label head, when I check it, if somebody say, hey, go check out my friend Didi the Rap Man, you know what I'm saying? That was a horrible name. Right. I think that's how they come up with it. Didi the Rap Man. Why somebody gonna come out? But yeah, so the first thing I do is go to the Spotify monthly listeners. That's the first thing I'm looking at. And so those Spotify monthly listeners validates you as, okay, this is an artist that's putting in the work and things like that. So I found it interesting that this music didn't load up to Apple Music, and it ended up loading up only on Spotify, and it kind of shot her monthly listeners up because that was the only place people can go. So my theory, and you could take this if you want, my theory was maybe if you're a new artist and this is your first release, a great way to gain data is to not release the song for the first 3 weeks on Apple Music, but only release it on Spotify. That way people have to tunnel into Spotify, and then that helps your monthly listeners, that helps your streams go up. And then remember, this isn't for generating income. This is to get data and to get that validation point. So when people come and check in, they're like, oh, okay, this guy is doing something because of these monthly listeners. So that's something else I noticed. So again, we're releasing the records. We released one record. We're dropping content every single day. The Kai Cenat thing happened. She did Holy Culture Radio. And then the next thing was a show. She got a show, ended up doing the show. We took the clips from the show and we put it on her social media with the music behind it. And it was just consistent content every day. And she went from 28 monthly listeners to 10,000 monthly listeners in 3 weeks from this strategy. This was new to me. I was as shocked at y'all as y'all are now when it happened, because the artists that I previously worked with, I came in and they already had 100,000, 30,000. So I never seen it from zero. So my first time seeing how this content strategy really works, and it was extremely simple to shoot. Literally, we were on her balcony. I had a A6000 Sony. We shot the content vertical. So the key to it was you have to have an eye. You have to know what's a great shot. You know what I mean? A lot of times I see content creators and the content is just all over the place and it's not attractive to the eye. As long as it could be a still shot. It can literally be a tripod with a still vertical shot. As long as the content is pleasant to the eye, then it will work. But the other thing is the music has to be great. That's the selling point. So the music has to be great, well mixed, great songwriting, great lyrics that people, especially in the Christian space, in the Christian genre, lyrics that people could really, feel, and that usually pulls you in. So seeing that, another thing too, so a program that I used to edit these videos was CapCut. CapCut is an amazing program. It has filters that help you color grade the footage. It has special effects built in where you don't have to be an editor to really use CapCut. It's a really simple system to use. So CapCut was the editing program, and then the last thing that I noticed was what she did right was she interacted with every single person that came to her page. Anybody that said anything, she commented back. She would like, she would follow, and those things kind of led to these people becoming fans. So what changes a viewer into a fan is interaction. Them seeing that you're a real person, them seeing that you appreciate them taking out the time to even check out your music. After that, so this is another one. This is something that me and her ended up came, and I call it getting in front of opportunity, right? So I'm giving y'all, this is my little secret, you know what I mean? I'm giving it to you. So it's called getting in front of opportunity. What you do is when you build your Instagram following to a certain place and you have all this content on your page, what you do is, what platforms do you want to get on? What A&Rs do you want to contact? What labels do you want to be interested in you? What you do is you go follow the employees at that label. So if you build your followers to where you have 60,000 followers or 80,000 followers, and you go follow an employee at Reach Records who only have 1,000, but then when they see that you followed them and then they go to your page and they see all this content and this music and they see all the interactions, now you have labels watching you. And that's what I call, and now you have labels. Now you have editors at certain platforms like Complex and stuff watching you. Get in front of the opportunity, right? Even if they just follow you back. The thing is, you don't have to DM them. Now they're paying attention. So if they follow you back, now they're paying attention. Another way you can get the attention is once you build your page to a certain amount of followers, you have all these followers, and you go get in front of the opportunity, you follow these guys. The way you can even get a follow back is maybe go and comment on 2 or 3 pictures. And that's it. And that's all you have to do. What you're doing is you're trying to spark curiosity. They're going to say, who is this guy or girl that just followed me? And that once they see the page, if the page is done well, if it looks good, now they're locked in. Through doing that, we grab the attention of Tribal. We grab the attention of Vito's manager. I don't know if you ever heard of Vito, the songwriter. His manager was interested. And those little things count as well. So understanding like small little strategies. The idea of your career is you're constantly building a brand, so you got to constantly come up with strategic plans to get to where you're going, and you got to know what you're doing. Another thing that's important that we're going to start getting into later with Lee's career is live shows. So right now we're on her first release, and we're building data. So your first release is that data point. I'm trying to figure out who likes her, what cities is interested, what's her demographic. Does she have a male audience or does she have a female audience? Like, you know what I mean? So through doing that, I can figure out when I'm running ads, because that's the next thing, right? Is once you get your page and your music going to a certain level, now you want to start running ads on your most received content. So you may have content that organically went up 20,000 views. What you do is you run ads on that content, and and what that does is it push it in front of new people, and then eventually they come to your page, and then eventually they go to your Spotify and things like that. Once you take over the digital realm, you have to come into real life space. So putting on your own shows. If you can't book a show, put on your own show. Go get a venue. There's venues where you could book for like $500, and you can go get an Airbnb and do something dope, a rooftop and do something dope. So just making live, real world experiences to start growing that fan base and growing that following is And it, like I said, if you think of this as building your brand and building your business step by step, you know, okay, the first step is getting into the digital market, getting into the content spaces, and then the next step is building that live. If you think back in the day with Motown, right? Like Motown had the Chitlin circuit for a reason. It was a reason why they took these new artists and they just, you know, took them in front of real world people. That's still a thing. That's still important for building a revenue stream for yourself. Once you get the live show element, here's the trick right here to building yourself as an artist and continuing to build your career. Consistency. Do it again and again and again. Everything I named, you're literally just going to repeat the steps every single release. And what happens is a lot of artists get burnt out. They're like, man, I released 5 records and I only got 500 new followers. Okay, release 5 more and get 500 more new followers. Literally, for the rest of your career, all you're doing is creating a product, marketing the product, building merchandise so that you can create another revenue stream, syncing your music, doing tours so that you can create a live stream, revenue stream for yourself. And then you're repeating that with a new record or a new album over and over. And if you think of it like that, it's almost like the piano keys or a mixing board. When you first see it, it's very intimidating because you're like, yo, all these keys. But then you realize, oh, it's just to repeat it over and over again. So when you think about your music career like that, where it's like, oh, I'm just doing the same thing over and over again, it's going to look different outwardly every time, but the skeleton is the same. So if you understand that, it really simplifies it for you, and it really makes it easy for you, right? I think another thing too, where a lot of artists get stuck is you put out music, you're doing the content, but you're not seeing growth. And you have to be real with yourself. If you're not seeing growth, the music may be bad. You know what I mean? Got to be real with yourself. If you're not seeing growth, the music may be bad. And you may have to go back to the drawing board. You may need assistance. You may need to bring in some songwriters. You may need to bring in some better engineers. You may need to bring in some mixers. You may need to stop for a second and go listen to what's going on around you and really pick up the sounds and the cadences and what's popular so that you can recreate it. A lot of times as a songwriter and as an A&R, I think my gift is being able to know what's dope right now and then take elements from that and flip it and innovate it for our artists. And that's something I do all the time. I'm always listening to the popular records. I'm listening to the sonics that's going on. I'm figuring out like what snare drum sounds good on a beat, what hi-hat sound good, what cadences that are catching people, what's the tempos that's popular. You got to remember that you're not, when you become a professional recording artist, you're not making music for yourself. You're making music to entertain people. So the music has to be entertaining, and that's the key part. I think if you keep it real with yourself and you say, is my music good? The way you know if your music is good or bad is you take your song and you compare it to the top artists in the world. If your music can't hang with them, because when you release on Spotify, Apple Music, guess who you're next to? The top artists in the world. So if your mix isn't as good as this, if your songwriting isn't as good as this, and these are things that you can get at a low price. You know, a good mix is just finding somebody who has that ear, and you can get a good mix for $150. You know what I'm saying? You just got to know what a good mix sound like. You got to know what a good song sound like. So the way you do that is you go listen to the top artists and you say, and you be real with yourself. Is my song better than this Beyonce song? Or would I listen to this, you know what I mean, So you have to, that's the level you have to put yourself at to get what you need. You know what I mean? And yeah, so that's my time, guys. Thank you so much for coming out. I appreciate you all. Thank you. And before we end, does anybody have any questions or anything? Go ahead. You said what? So, what's your goal as a producer? Got you. So, what may be good is what I would do if I was trying to build as a producer. It's all about catalog, right? So I would find an artist that's up there, artist that's kind of moving the needle. And the thing is, so you don't have to, when you first come into the game, you don't have to always take a front end, because if you're dealing with artists that's getting 100,000 monthly streams or 200,000 monthly streams, then you're going to get money on the back end, right? So a strategy that you can use is finding those artists and saying, hey man, I really love your sound. Could I send you a pack of beats? No charge up front. We'll just do back end splits. And in your mind, you know I'm building my catalog. Once you build your catalog to a certain place, if you have one artist that's streaming at least 100,000 monthly streams, and then you go get 30 records with this artist, eventually that becomes a revenue stream for you. And then what you do is, because this artist has a name, you use that, and then you go to another artist and say, well, I work with this artist, and my price is $1,500 a beat now. You know what I mean? And then that's how you eventually build. So you essentially, the steps is find an artist that you feel like is growing, that's moving, offer your services for free, back-end splits, grow with that artist, and then move on to the next artist and do the same steps over and over. There's a group by the name of, I forgot the production team, but what they used to do is they would go out, Bankroll got it. I think they're a production team. So what they did was, in LA, they would go out and book a studio, and they would call artists and literally invite the artists just to come out and record for free on top of their beats. And that's how they started getting their placements. So does that answer your question? Okay, go ahead. Mm-hmm. That would come off of personal relationships, right? If you know a label exec, or if you know somebody that you grew up with that just believe in you, right? But the thing is, growing a fan base, this is the new market. The old market was live shows, but remember, you still had to go on 106 in Park, and you still had to do MTV. So social media is the new MTV. It's the new 106 in Park. It's literally where we are with the times, and you kind of just have to accept it to continue to grow. You know what I mean? It just understand that, oh, we're here now. Back in the day, before that, you used to go to parties. Like when hip hop first started, it used to be on the block at parties, and you see each other rapping, and then you grew that respect from just rapping at parties. And then it turned into, okay, hip hop is now a mainstream genre. Now you have to be seen by the world. How do you get seen by the world? You got to be on MTV. You got to be on the award shows. You got to do all these things and get in front of people. That's the validation points again. The new validation point is social media following, streaming. So it's like, if you shift your thinking from thinking that, this is this shouldn't determine your success, and think of it as, no, this is the new business model. This is just the new business model. And it's like you either have to get with the times, or you end up Did that answer your question? Okay. Got you. So the first thing you start with is you just make great music and great content. You're not thinking about a market, right? The market comes to you. If you make music that resonates with who you are as an artist and the content looks amazing, when you put it out, what happens is that first release is where you find your market. So we didn't know that her market was Latin and black women until she put out the music. And that's not something we thought about. She just did music that resonated with her soul, right? And then what happens is you find like-minded individuals that are like you, and then that's how you find it. So you don't even think about that at first. What's the most important thing is making sure you're making great music and making sure your content looks amazing, and then let the market find you. No problem. Always. Always, man. Go ahead. Okay. Say less. Yeah. What's your name? Robbie Beloved. Let's do it. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Yep. Man, it's that get in front of the opportunity thing I mentioned, right? So making sure you're following those people. And sometimes it is easy. Sometimes it's a DM, sometimes it's just an email. And so, I'm sorry. Yep, absolutely. 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 So yeah, to get in front of them, man, it's all about just follow the DJs, DM them. If you're at an event where, say, if Track Stars is in here, simply, hey, what's the email I can send some of my music over to? It's just all about just being brave enough to ask. I got in my position as an A&R at Reach Records because I was brave enough to ask. You know, when I got in the building, it was by a friend of mine, Ace Harris, the VP over there. He was going into the bank to cash a check. One of my friend's moms was the cashier. She ended up saying, "Hey, my son does music," and me and my friend ended up producing and writing with him. And then every time I would go to the label, I'd be like, "Hey, man, you need some A&Rs?" Yo, man. So it's just bravery sometimes, and knowing the people to talk to. So doing your research on who is who, and then just putting yourself in front of them and building that and sometimes it's just genuine relationships over time. So it's like we keep seeing each other. It's just human interaction. Once you perfect that, and then if your music is amazing, like if I keep seeing you and then I see you on the gram and I'm like, yo, this dude is hard. Next time I see you, I'm like, yo, bro, pull up to the studio. Go ahead. Oh, so a thing that happened that's similar to that is there's an artist named Rich Then Famous, and I was doing a camp. Earlier this year, and it was a bunch of people that submitted, right? And Rich hit me up on the DM. He was like, "Yo, bro, I submitted, but I ain't getting no response, bro. Like, how do I get to the camp?" And I simply went to his page and I seen that he had a song out, and I personally just liked the song. I went back into the DM and I said, "Yo, bro, pull up to the camp." He ended up pulling up to the camp, and he ended up doing a record called Blessings with an artist named Jay Newton, and it ended up getting on the Summer Playlist project. Yeah. So yeah, so that's exactly, and and the type of character he has. He's brave. He's not afraid to ask for opportunity, and so yeah, no problem. Okay. I would do it one. So every release, every time you have a release, at least do 1 or 2 validation points with it, and then that'll be your gauge. Is every time I drop a record, let me do at least 1 interview. Let me do at least 1 mic drop, and then I got to wrap up after this. But thank y'all so much.